Good evening, everyone, and thanks for attending my webinar this evening. And before starting, of course, I would like to thank Pilar for this wonderful opportunity to present my research for the Children in Translation Network. My name is Vanessa Leonardi, and I am an Associate Professor of English Language and Translation Studies, and I'm currently working at the Italian University of Sapienza in Rome. And my contribution is part of an ongoing research project aimed at exploring a new form of translation based on a new form of global communication, that is emoji translation. And my presentation would be sort of interactive, so it would be nice to interact with you, and I will ask you to work on a few activities, if you like, of course, and that will give me wonderful feedback for my research. So it's going to be a quite interactive webinar. And let's say that the digital age has changed the way people communicate. In general, communication is the way for people to connect over information, news, feelings, anything. But the way in which people connect has evolved, leading to new communication opportunities and challenges. Thanks to technology, we now can rely on a wide range of communication tools, such as emails or instant messaging, just to mention a few, allowing communication to be easier, quicker, and of course, more efficient. This is where emojis play a fundamental role as an effective means of communication. And by the way, translation is also par excellence a means of communication that allows communication to cross borders, national borders. So the question is, what happens when translation meets technology and emoji language in the digital age? Well, we find a new form of translation, which is emoji translation. Basically, what I would like to do this evening is to show you how my work is structured, so which issues are explored in particular. These are my research questions for my presentation this evening. And so I will show you my questions, and at the end of the presentation, hopefully, I will give you a definite, in brackets, answer to these questions. And so I'm interested in determining whether emoji translation is creative, whether emoji translation is or can be universal, if emoji translation is suitable for children or for adults or for both, and for option for none of them. And of course, I'm interested to see whether it's possible to codify the emoji language so that the emoji language could be the suitable candidates for translation purposes. And emojis, well, they are everywhere today, and they seem to have become a sort of obsession. And at the same time, they are considered a sort of lingua franca of the digital age. Emojis and their use have become a hot and controversial research topic in many research fields, academic fields, such as communication studies, cultural studies, and linguistics, in particular semiotics, but even translation studies. And the world seems to be so obsessed with them that in 2015, the face with tears for joy emoji became the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year. And that's amazing, because I said word of the year, but that's actually pictograph that we're talking about. And that was because that particular emoji was the most commonly used word, okay, in 2015. So emojis are more and more frequently used all over the world, okay. But are they universal, or are they culturally specific symbols? What I mean is, does a sad face or a smiley face depict the same emotions all around the world, despite cultural, regional, and linguistic differences? Now, several studies have proven that emojis are a universal component of written language. But be careful, meanings and usage are not universal. Please take a look at these few emojis upon this slide and tell me, what do they mean to you? And how are they used in your culture? Are they offensive in any way? Now, using emojis in cross-cultural communication runs the risk of being misunderstood. And when it comes down to translation, it could be more serious, especially when we're dealing with the translation of children's literature, children's books. And for instance, the okay hand gesture, okay, and it's actually considered to be a sort of insult in Mexico, in Brazil, sorry, and Turkey. And what about clappy hands? I always think of clappy hands as being positive, like, well done, congratulations, okay? But really, in China, it's a symbol, there's a kind of sexual connotations, like it's a symbol for making love. And what about the slightly smiling emoji? That's not always a sign of happiness or a positive emoji, because in China, for instance, it implies distrust, disbelief, or even someone humoring you. And it can also convey an angel. We always think, at least in the West, that that's actually associated with a good deed, innocence, something positive, and again. But it may be used as a sign of death, related to death, and even be perceived as threatening in China. Last but not least, what do you see over there? Well, an aubergine, a banana, and a peach. Now, some people might take these emojis for what they are, vegetables and or fruits. But what about if I tell you that there are sort of sexual connotations related to the use of these particular emojis? So you have to be extremely careful when you are using emojis in cross-cultural communication, okay? But I think that one of the greatest problems of the emoji language is codification. Emojis lack proper grammar, as also proven in several studies. There's such an interesting article published by 3 Dutch researchers, and that was in the 2019. It actually shed light on the grammar of emojis and actually, or more specifically, on the lack of grammar of emojis. And in their study, they concluded that when emoji symbols are strung together, we don't have a reliable way of interpreting the meaning. So now the question is, given all the cultural differences in the interpretation of emojis and all over the world, and given the lack of grammar, how is it possible that we can actually call the emoji language or universal language? And how is it possible to think of it as being the suitable candidate for translation purposes? What happens when we face the challenge of decoding or translating texts entirely written in emojis? If they are children's books or books targeting children in particular, it should be quite easy, shouldn't it? Well, I'm not totally convinced. And to show you that, what you can see upon the slides and on the following slides, it was a sort of experimental study carried out in particular primary schools, where children were asked to guess the book title by looking at these emoji strings, basically, or emoji translation or emojified version of the book title. And so I tried myself, and I have to say that it was quite challenging. At first, I thought that's because I don't know the book. But then, even when I knew the book, I could understand why particular emojis were actually used, okay? So look at them, okay? And I will show you, of course, the book title after you actually be looking at it, okay? Yes, well done. Okay, Ekaterina is actually answering, okay? Well done. But let's have a look, okay? So the first one, what do you think it is? Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Number 2, The Snail and the Whale. Now, personally, I don't know this book. But the thing is, do I need to know the book anyway? If it's true that they are universal, okay, I should be able to decode these emojis quite easily. So the question is, okay, the title is The Snail and the Whale. Why do I have a wave? I don't understand that. Number 3, The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Okay. Number 4, try your own guess, of course. Number 4, The Tiger Who Came to Tea. Okay. I was okay with number 5, finally. And A Bird Called Paddington. Please don't give up. Number 6, very easy from this point of view. It must be The Rainbow Fish. Now, with number 7, really, I had a problem. Okay, I didn't know the book. So I'll show you the title. Meg, Mug, or Room of the Broom. Okay, so I went to do a little bit of research and I found out that these are stories about a witch who lives with her cat and an owl. So the question is, was the owl important to be placed within the string of emoji or not? Well, I don't know, but I could actually guess it. So, and please remember that that was done with kids, okay? Kids could actually do it. Not all of them, of course. So, but that's the point. I mean, if kids can manage to do this, what about adults? Or maybe they didn't do that well. And in fact, most of them didn't do that well. Number 8, we're going on the bear hunt. God. Number 9, I don't know why. The first thing I thought, okay, please don't feed animals at the zoo. No, it was the Gruffalo. I was thinking, oh my God. Okay, right, something else. And I was okay with number 10 myself, just because I know the book, but because in Italian, we actually got the colors kind of connotation into the title, okay? So Elma, so that was 5. And last ones, okay, as well. Number 16 is quite easy, okay? And it's, yes, Harry Potter. And 17, that was difficult. Can you guess? That was difficult for me, of course, that's what I mean. But let me see, someone's answering. No, nobody can, I think. But what about that? Gangsta Granny. Okay, well, I didn't do the book and I still can't work it out completely. I'm not quite sure. And 18, that was an interesting one for me because I tried to work out the sequence and I said, the lion, the witch, the doll in the snow, or something like this. But yes or no, it was the lion, the witch, and the wardrobe. Okay, it's a doll that I see could be a wardrobe. Okay, why do I have the snow symbol? That was because, and again, I went to search for this book. It's a fantasy novel for children. The first published and the best known are the 7 novels in the Chronicles of Narnia. So that particular symbol for the snow was because it was referring to the land in perpetual winter. Okay, but I think you do need to know the text. But then again, this means that emojis are not that universal, okay? What about number 19? Anybody? Yes, Carla, she did it, and Ekaterina as well. I couldn't do it. I don't know how you worked that out, but I couldn't. James and the Giant Peach. But then again, I don't know the book. So maybe that's one of the reasons, okay? Finally, last one. Yes, I knew that one. Thank God. The BFG, which in Italian translates, that's why I could work this out in a quite easy way. Anyway, having said that, reading and comprehension difficulties arise and increase, I would say, in cases where emojis are used on their own, and especially when they are used to translate literary works. As far as translation is concerned, one of the first books translated by using emojis is Emoji Dick. And as the title suggests, okay, that's the emojified translation of Moby Dick. Now, that was carried out, edited, and compiled by Fred Benenson. Now, Benenson was interested in the way language, communication, and culture have been affected by digital technology. And in choosing which piece of literature to translate, Benenson wanted something that was in the public domain, less cliche than the Bible. And of course, he had to be quite long enough. And well, Moby Dick was a perfect choice, I would say. But why? Because he wanted to demonstrate the scale of Amazon's Mechanical Turk. So in 2009, Benenson enlisted Amazon Mechanical Turk workers to translate Moby Dick using emojis. And this work was released in 2013. So it's actually the pioneer of the emoji translation from the point of view. So what he did, he divided his Amazon Mechanical Turk workers into two groups. Those who would do the translating and those who would vote on the translation to select the best versions. So let me show you basically how the text looks like. And okay, so of course this is chapter 1. I selected the first chapter. As you can see, we find several strings of emojis, and that's the emoji translation basically, and the original text below them. And just to show you this, on the right-hand side, that's a classical text that we actually find, the source text as it stands. But anyway, let's go back to the emoji Dick translation. Now, what do you think of it? Can we call it a translation? And there's a huge thing to say about this. I mean, some people find this text to be controversial. Some people would say that's not suitable for children anyway. But in many different parts of the world, like in my country, I can tell you that kids do read Moby Dick. Sometimes in primary schools as a kind of simplified version, but then in middle school, they really start reading the full text, okay? So, but that's not my point. The thing is, then we decide whether it's a suitable translation for children, for adults, for both, or for none, okay? The point is, let's have a look at how this emoji translation somehow works. And if it's true, and again, the emojis are universal or universally understood, okay, then we should be able to back translate from the emoji version back into English, basically. So what about if we focus only on the emoji strings, okay, on the emoji translation without looking at the text? Something like that. Now, I had to tell you the truth. I never read this book, okay? I know what you're thinking, shame on you, okay, I'm sorry. I never read this book. But then this means that I can't get any kind of help in my translation, in my back translation to English, if I have to translate this string of emoji. And basically, personally, if I say that, completely decontextualize it from the text, okay? Because I don't know if that's actually Moby Dick, it refers to Moby Dick. And maybe I will translate something like, I called my dad, my husband, a man, it's a man, to ask whether whale fishery is okay. It's horrible, isn't it? Or I could say something else, or I can say something else. But the thing is, really, I could mean anything. This string of emojis could be interpreted and translated in a variety of ways, of different ways. So I thought, what about if I think in terms of contextualizing the text? So I have to think that I'm reading Moby Dick. Okay. Will my translation be different? I don't know. Well, first of all, it's funny to see telephone is quite anachronistic, but it does give me the idea of calling. So call should be there. But okay, so it's Moby Dick. I try my best. I can come up with something like, call the whalers captain. What else? I don't know what to say. Okay, I had to look at the text. Call me Ishmael. Really, I couldn't get to that translation. I really couldn't. And I'm sure that most of you, if not all of you, know the text. So apart from me, I'm probably the only person who hasn't read it yet. So what about working a little bit with me? Now, I would like to give you these 4 strings of emojis that form an entire paragraph of Moby Dick. And I would like to ask you to provide me with a translation, a back translation into English for this emoji translation. Can you do it? Can you manage? I will wait a few minutes and then I will show you the source text so that we can actually see whether we got closer to the source text or not. Of course, as you can guess, in my case, I didn't get any close to that at all. But I'll wait a few minutes. It's very hard. It's definitely very hard. Okay, so let me show you the source text. I don't know how you did with your back translation to English, but mine was horrible, so I won't even show you. It was completely something else, okay? And so the first string of emojis in yellow translates this sentence, okay? So there now is your insular city of Germanatos, belted round by wharves as India Isles, by coral reef, commerce surrounds it with her surf. And then we got, and carry on, and we carry on with this translation. But really, I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to translate it. I didn't understand. And my interpretation of these emojis was completely different. Even if I tried to contextualize the text, thinking it's got to do with Moby Dick. Of course, I read it, but I know the story, but I couldn't work it out. Now, Italian translation, is that helping? Well, Italian, because of course, my native language is actually Italian, so you can think in terms of translating to your native languages. And again, the question is, if it's true, okay, the emojis are universal, emoji language is universal, then I should be able to translate it back into my own language. Maybe it makes sense, okay? Because I thought maybe I had a problem with English. Let's try with Italian. And to tell you the truth, even my Italian translation was so bad. Basically, it was a back translation from English, I think. So my ideas were still the same. That's my interpretation of those particular emojis, okay? So this is not my translation, okay? This is the official Italian translation of Moby Dick. And when I compared, so I won't show you mine, of course. When I compared my Italian translation with the official translation, I realized that something was wrong. And can you guess what was wrong? My interpretation. I wasn't able to decode this language. And okay, let's have a look now at how emojis or emoji translation was carried out specifically for children. I will show you a few examples and we will determine whether these translations are feasible in the meaning they are suitable for children or not. And Christina Semenova is the creator and the translator, of course. So it's the creator of the Background Emoji book series, and which has translated a great number of classic novels and fairy tales, partially, as you can see, is a partial translation into emojis, okay? And Around the World in 80 Days, Black Beauty, The Call of the Wild, The Elder Bush, and The Old House. Now, at the back of each book, let me show you this. You can find Rebus Dictionary, which offers a translation for each emoji and its meaning. And as you can see, one emoji might have more than one meaning, of course, okay? And as of right now, there are almost 1,100 symbols with 9,600 different meanings. And Semenova also introduced new emojis. So she wanted to create a new emojis that would be more suitable for children, okay? Having said that, let's start by looking at how Alice in Wonderland was translated through emojis by Semenova, partially translated, of course. Now, as you can see on the slides, there are a few marks, okay? You can see like highlighting, you can see something that was circled in red, you can see a question mark. Question marks, there are actually 3 of them. So these were the problems I personally encountered when I had to back translate this text into English. Now the question is, okay, this is meant to be for children. So by looking at this text, if you try to read it, okay, do you think that this is actually suitable for children? Or it's better that adults will be reading for children? So what about us? We are the adults, by the way. Are you okay with reading this? Yes and no. It's not too bad. I'd say it's not too bad. But it's not that immediate or straightforward for me, okay? So for instance, at the beginning, Alice was, and I know, at least for me, the interpretation that first emoji is something like play starts. And I can guess it's like Alice was beginning to get very tired, bored, tired of sitting by her sister in the bank and of having, so this means stop it, it's not allowed. So, but really, okay, it's very difficult. Let me do this. Okay, it's better if I show you the text. Nothing to do. Once or twice she had looked, and then we get peeped, of course, into the book her sister was reading, but he had no pictures. Yes, okay, that was correct. Or messages, conversations, okay, in it. And what is the use of a book? And then I got a problem with that. That's a kind of settings. It means like, but really what Semenova thought that was meant to translate was the verb to think. So thought Alice without pictures or conversation. And okay, the second part was okay, but in the second paragraph, I had a problem with the upside down emoji. By the way, that's one of the emojis that she created for children, but it does exist. I mean, it's yellow, usually it's yellow, round, it's usual emoji basically. It's the upside down emoji, and the upside down emoji, I really don't like it personally. I don't think I'm able to understand the meaning of that. Usually I take it as a sort of sarcasm or irony, but really she meant stupid. And then what you can see, there's actually circle in red with the question mark, the red question mark. How would you interpret that? To me, that was satisfaction. When I send that kind of emoji, it's like satisfied, I'm happy, I'm okay with that. So it really translates pleasure, okay? And of course, I was looking for a noun because I can tell, because it's easier in a way because I have the words. Words are helping me, kind of supporting aids to translate these emojis, to interpret these emojis, okay? Still, it's not that immediate. It is not for me anyway. That's my point, okay? Maybe it might be for you, but it's very, very challenging. It's very hard, okay? Even the word suddenly, okay, you can find it at the end of the second paragraph, I circled in green, okay? I couldn't get to suddenly, okay? There was a clock to me, it's time. I couldn't possibly guess suddenly, okay? And finally, I can see on the final paragraph, the final line, a repetition, so two emojis, one by the other. Usually, when I tell you my case, in my case, when I send a message with two emojis, for me, it usually means emphasis. I want to emphasize something. But it's got nothing to do with that, because at the end of the day, he translated something like over afterwards. So all in all, it wasn't too bad, okay? But, and again, my question is, what about children? Will they be able to read this text by themselves? Some of them, yes, some of them not. What's the age? Because it's not specified. That wasn't actually specified. What's the correct age for children to read these texts, okay? And to tell you the truth, we are adults. I was having problems. I'm still have problems in decoding some of these texts. And I would like to show you another one by Semenova, A Christmas Carol. That wasn't too bad, okay? I was doing quite well. So, okay, Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker. Okay, I had a problem with that. My first translation, back translation, was crying captain. That's what I see. There's a captain, someone is crying. Okay, it could be the crying captain. But really, the word was chief mourner. Okay, same point. I couldn't get to that. I don't know you, if you could actually guess that. But what about the green, the emoji highlighted in green? First thing was something like name was okay, was all right. And then, of course, you have to try, then you say, okay, it was good upon change, and then you can work this out. But it's not that immediate. That's my point. It's not that straightforward, okay? You really need to think a lot into this kind of reading. And from the same book, A Christmas Carol, I carried out my reading or my interpretation or my translation, back translation, and I have a few problems. And again, as I said, sometimes the same emoji is used to mean something else, something which is related in a way. In some cases, it's easier to do it, like darkness. Okay, I can do that. But what about the two emojis highlighted, so circled in green, as you can see? And the first case, the meaning is struck. But in the second case, it means bit. And by the way, my greatest problem with this page was to decode the 4 emojis in the third paragraph that would stay together. So it was difficult to get to a definite interpretation, the correct translation of it. I didn't do that well at the beginning. Then I looked at the text, I thought, okay, yes, okay, makes sense. But, you know, I still need the text to do that. Or even the second paragraph, first line, to his great surprise, that comes to me as surprise straight away, but was astonishment. Okay, astonishment, surprise, okay. I mean, it's not that bad, but still, few things are not clear. They're not clear to me. So if I imagine I have to read this text to my daughter, well, I will have to stop and to switch back and forth between the glossary and back to the text, which is okay. I mean, it's not too bad. It's nice. It's creative. So I'm really answering one of my questions. It's definitely creative, okay? But then I don't know whether it's suitable for children. And if it's so, we need to think about the age group maybe. And we need to think about the feasibility of using this particular translation. And please help me Now, I won't show you the source text, but what you can find on the right-hand side, you can find the text, and this is taken from Around the World in 80 Days. And I had serious problems to provide a translation for these emojis. So the one in yellow, those in green, you can see different colors, okay? And can you please try to work out the meaning, the translation, and then I will show you so you can actually compare your translation with the original source text. And then you can tell me at the end, if you like, at the end of the conversation, or you can write in the chat whether you were able to guess them right correctly, all of them, okay? I will wait a minute. Okay. What about your translation? Was it okay? Was it good? Was it correct? And so in the first case was members. Eventually, I got that meaning. Mostly, okay. Eventually, I got to that meaning of members because I had a reference, like we form club. If I think of a club, then I'll be thinking of members. Makes sense. Okay, it wasn't people. But this symbol, the green one, the first highlighted in green, like it gives me the impression that something's got to do with it, okay, little small, but it's shrinking down or something. So I have to remember that that's actually little. But then the tick, to me, means correct. That's what it means. I can't think of a different meaning, but the meaning was known, so it's actually a verb. Okay. What about the one in pink, highlighted in pink? I really couldn't work that out. That's yoga. That's kind of meditation. And it's kind of calm, but tranquil. I couldn't work that out. Not even in English would be using the word. So probably I won't. And what about the city? That's the emoji highlighted in blue. I mean, I couldn't do that, okay? But what about the ins, of course? I wasn't thinking straight, maybe I was too tired, but really I could work that out. And again, let me show you the last one by Semenova. Okay, please help me again. Now, my biggest problems were really the two emojis highlighted in light blue, okay, where you can see a rainbow and the typical heart-shaped eyes emoji. So when I see that, I always think something like to be in love with somebody, but it won't make sense within that particular string of text, okay? And guess what? What it was? It was something like wonderfully fond of each other. I wasn't able to do that. I tried so many times, but just I couldn't work out this meaning. And what about when you can see the huge question mark? Okay, the sort of pink question mark. That particular emoji, well, to me, means something like when you're not happy about something, when you are dissatisfied, or I don't know, but I couldn't think about that emoji that could actually mean something like proud. That's what it was. Maybe I don't know the meaning of that emoji. Okay, I have to say this. Angry, some people said. See, different cultures perceive it differently. For me, there was something like I'm not satisfied, but that was proud. Okay, well, I would say that things are getting better or things are getting worse. Let's have a look. What about translations carried out entirely in emojis? This is Wonderland by Joy L. It's actually a poster. It's a huge poster. So I'm sorry, it's not the best picture. Something is a huge poster. And the whole story of Alice in Wonderland is actually there, completely translated by using emojis. Now, artist, designer, and author Joy L can now officially call himself an emoji translator. He does call himself an emoji translator. And he took more than 25,000 symbols and 300 hours for him to convert Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland into emojis, okay? Now, I know you got problems in visualizing this kind of strings, so I managed to zoom in into a couple of strings, and let's have a look. Okay, wow, I think you can back translate into English the first string, of course, although I think that a couple of emojis could be avoided because I didn't understand why they were placed there. But there was no way for me that I was able to decode the meaning, so back translate this string of emojis into English. So in the first case, it's what is the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversations. Okay. What about the second one? That was like, no way, I can do it. I really tried. And under the text, we're all mad here. No, I don't understand why. And so what I would like to tell you is, can you read this? Can you translate these emojis back into English? Can you do a back translation of it? In other words, do or can you understand this language? And let me show you some interesting questions that I actually found on his webpage that were asked about these projects, okay, directly to him, of course, and I will show you the answers. An interesting question was, do you consider yourself fluent in emoji? And by the way, emoji can be written emoji or emojis in the plural, so both versions are actually correct. And he said, when I finished Wonderland, I found I could read it back. Wow, great. Of course you did it. You wrote it. You did it. You translated it. Of course you should be able to read it back. Personally, I couldn't. Okay. And second question, walk me through your translation process. And he said, when I was translating, I put the emojis on in layers, almost like painting and writing, until the emoji text was sufficiently dense that I could transliterate the emoji back into a crude version of the original. Wonderful. I couldn't. I really tried my best, but I couldn't transliterate the emoji back into a crude version of the original. I didn't even get that close to that, okay? And were there any particularly difficult sequences to translate? And he said, there were really not too many difficult sequences after I'd developed my method and emoji vocabulary. Great, codification. So he codified the language, but we find no information whatsoever about how he worked out the sequences. So there's no way, no hint into the codification of the language. So this language is not codified. But I will show you in a few minutes someone who actually managed to codify the emoji language. But the most interesting question for me was this one. That was the best. What is the most important aspect of your Alice in Wonderland poster that people might not understand? And he said that it's not necessarily meant to be read. Okay, wait a minute. I mean, I understand we are talking about nonsense text. I understand we are talking about creativity. I understand that you call yourself emoji translator and that you classify this work as being an emojified translation of Alice in Wonderland. So what shall I do with that? And okay, so he wanted basically people to escape to that place, otherwise be inspired to read some Lewis Carroll. And I think you should. Otherwise, it would be impossible, virtually possible, to back translate the emojified version of Alice into English. Okay. And okay, we're nearly finished. Okay, please stay with me. Don't give up. Last but not least, Pinocchio, translated into emoji language, emoji Italiano. Now, I would like to introduce one of the most unique, if I can say that, examples of translation totally, entirely carried out into emojis. And this is unique because the language was codified. Now, Pinocchio in Emoji Italiano was published in 2017, and this publication was released further to a research project carried out at the Italian University of Macerata by Francesca Chiusaroli, professor of applied linguistics, along with Joanna Monti and Federico Sangazzi, who developed the Telegram bot used to build the emoji dictionary. Now, the book provides readers with both the original Italian text or version and its emojified translation, but it also includes at the back an emoji glossary and a grammar guide. So the aim was to build a common code to codify the language. And Francesca Chiusaroli, head researcher of the project, explained that unlike other international projects, the goal is to build a real grammar that once the rules are set, can be used by everyone. Grammatical and syntax rules that are based on those of the Italian language in the construction of the sentence, so SVO, subject, verb, and complement, in which the translation ends up being, careful, conceptual and is not word for word. This is important. Okay. And translation is conceptual rather than word for word. Please keep this sentence in mind. This is how the text looks like. On the left-hand side, as you can see, we have the original source text. And on the opposite page, we have a total emoji translation of the text. Now, we know that Pinocchio is a suitable text for children, it's a suitable text for adults. We are all reading this text. And again, it might be controversial as many texts for children. Is Pinocchio really suitable for children? Well, it is. Everybody studies or reads this text, even in primary schools, at least in my country, okay? Now, the real point is, what about the emojified translation of it? Will it be suitable for children? Because that's my point. Is it suitable for children? Is it suitable for adults? Is it suitable for both? Is it difficult? Now, what do you think of it? Can you read it? And what about focusing only on the emoji translation without looking at the text? Does it make sense? As you can see, we've got little strings, little combinations, and they're all separated, okay? And basically, the only way to read, to interpret, to translate this conceptual emoji translation back into Italian, basically, is to look at the grammar rules and the glossary or dictionary carefully designed by these scholars, okay? Let me show you, okay, that's the grammar at the back of the book, okay? So it's got all sorts of different rules, like general rules, rules about articles, how to place articles, rules about personal pronouns, verbs, and so on, all the different grammatical categories, okay? Adjectives, adverbs, and the passive, and so on. Everything was like codified. So this is actually codified. And this is an example of how the glossary looks like. As you can see, you have to find the, basically, I will show you how to do this, decodification, okay? But you have to look at the first emoji in the string, at the beginning of the string, and then you have to see whether it stands on its own or if there's a combination. If there's a combination, you have to go through the glossary and find for the correct combination. So sometimes we only find one, when you're looking up in a dictionary, when you're doing your translation, okay, you can find different sorts of translations, and then you need to contextualize, of course, the particular word you're looking for. So basically, my question, and again, is how should we do this? For instance, okay, when you're looking at the text and you find a house, as I said, if it stands on its own, it's just a house, casa, house. If I find a combination, house plus a glass of wine, it's osteria, which translates as inn. House plus books, libraio, says bookseller, bookshop, basically. When I find a house with tools, in this particular case, I have a hammer and a wrench, It's bottega, so it's shop, it's the carpenter's shop, so it's a workshop basically I'm looking for. But this translation, as I've already said, is conceptual. Like, think about the way they worked out the translation, the modified translation of guilt and guilty. They used, you can see on the right-hand side, a man, a woman, and an apple. Now, and again, this is a biblical reference to the original sin. It's a kind of religious conceptualization that we have to go through. And let me show you an example on how to decode this text, okay? In this particular example, I am working on a sequence that's taken from chapter 4. And chapter 4 has got to do with the talking cricket. That's actually called in Pinocchio. And I selected this particular string for you to see how to do it, okay? And basically, you have to start from the beginning. So at the beginning, the first emoji, you can see a man running. That was the one selected to mean Pinocchio. So it's got to be Pinocchio. But just to show you how to do the decoding of the text, I want you to focus on this particular one. I can see a snail. I know it's a very bad picture. I'm sorry, my scanned version is not the best, but it's a snail, okay? A snail plus another symbol, which is an arrow indicating pointing towards the left, okay? So the first thing you have to do, you have to sort of determine where the sequence ends and starts and stops, okay, and ends. Then you go back to the dictionary or the glossary, and you start looking where the snails are located. And then you find different combinations with the snail. So a snail, of course, means lento, adagio, which means slow. Of course, we can guess that. But I need a combination. So if you keep looking in the glossary, you find the correct combination. It's like snail plus this arrow pointing or indicating towards left, which means a poco poco. Poco poco in Italian is something like little by little, bit by bit. But that's not enough, because now this researcher said you have to locate the sequence. You have to switch to the glossary. Once you located the correct sequence in the glossary, you have to switch to the grammar rules section, okay, to see whether it's actually an adjective, a verb, or whatever. And then going through the different cases, okay, you find that when this symbol is used, this particular arrow towards the left, indicating towards the left, okay, if it's actually placed after the adjective, it means adverb. So if the adjective, the snail, means slow adjective, the other sequence indicates that it's actually be codified as an adverb, lentamente, which means slowly. Okay, so what you have to do basically, you have to keep switching back and forth between glossary, grammar rules, and back to the text, and again, and again, and again. And finally, once you've done all this work for just one string, you come up with something like Pinocchio si voltò e vide un grosso grillo che saliva lentamente su per il muro. Don't worry, I have an English translation for it, okay? Pinocchio turned around and saw a big cricket crawling slowly up the wall. Okay, we done it. Now, what I think of this text, and let me show you the text again. Okay, I think that a large amount of work must have been done, devoted to this work. I think the scholars had the merit, of course, I do recognize the merits, having codified the emoji language, and that the only ones actually codified the emoji language. But in terms of feasibility, in terms of whether it's suitable for children, do you think this translation is suitable for children? And do you think this translation is suitable for adults? I think this translation is challenging, is complex, is time-consuming. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I don't say that, okay? And it's creative. Of course it is. But at the end of the time, it's so time-consuming. I mean, when I was doing the decodification, I was back translating to Italian without looking at the text, okay? Because, sorry, I didn't want to look at the text. And so I was sort of following the rules, okay, switching back and forth between the glossary and the grammar rule section and back to the text. He took so much time for me. And you know what? I'm sorry to say that, but after a while, I lost the interest. I was too tired. And that's the point. What about your target audience? Now, having said that, I would like to end my presentation by answering to the same questions that I showed you at the beginning of my presentation. So let's try. What do I think of emoji translation? Is it creative? Yes, definitely. It is creative. It's a creative form of writing. It's a creative form of communication. It's a creative form of translation. Is emoji translation universal? I don't know what's your interpretation of that. To me, it means two things. No way, or wait a minute, hang on, let's talk about it, okay? And what do I mean by universal? Now, universally used, okay. Universally understood? No, I don't think so. No way. There's no way the emoji language in itself, so the emoji translation can be universally intelligible. And next question, is emoji translation suitable for children or for adults or for both or for none of them? Can I think about it a little bit longer? I need to think about it a little bit longer. Like, I'm not so totally convinced that this kind of translation is suitable for children, even in cases where Semenova's translations were actually very well done, I have to say, but still they were challenging a little bit. So there were partial translations. I'm talking, what about emoji translation, total emoji translations, okay? And what about adults? Well, as an adult myself, as a translator myself, really, I had huge problems in decoding parts of the text that I was looking at for research purposes. And finally, and is it possible to codify the emoji language so that we can think of it as the perfect candidate, suitable candidate for translation purposes? Whew. My brain is exploding, and of course it's possible. And I showed you that someone did, okay? Researchers from Macerata, University of Macerata, they did it. They codify the emoji Italian, so which is possible to do this, but you know how much work, and again, what's the point in doing that? Will people be using the translation for what kind of reasons, what kind of purposes? For fun, for reading, for entertainment, for research purposes? And so, because it's a very large amount of work that was actually done, so what's the point of doing it? Of course, the aim was to build a common code, and they did it, but then I wasn't able to go and read the whole text by using that particular strategy, okay, or method. I would say method. Anyway, I've been talking long enough. And by the way, I will let you use another emoji, and promise this is the last emoji you're going to see tonight, okay? That's my way to say thank you so much for your attention. I apologize because I've been talking so much. Hopefully it was interesting for you as well. Thank you for interacting with me. I really appreciated that. That was good feedback from my research. And so what shall I say? Thank you all. Thank you for the audience. Thank you, Pilar, for this opportunity. And arrivederci from Italy.